The classroom was silent, so silent that even the hum of the lights above seemed louder than normal. Dozens of alien eyes stared at the doorway, their gazes fixed on the figure who had just entered. A human. She walked inside with steady steps, wearing the uniform of an exchange student. Her presence filled the room with unease. The alien students leaned closer to each other, whispering words that carried tones of both fear and curiosity. None of them had ever seen a human up close before. They had heard stories, rumors whispered through the corridors of the academy. Humans were fragile, small, soft-bodied creatures, yet they came from a world so dangerous that even the strongest predators avoided it. The teacher, a tall alien with shimmering scales, raised a hand and silenced the whispers. His voice was deep and calm, yet it carried an edge of anticipation. "Today, we will learn something unusual," he said. "Our guest will show us what humans do in the morning. Their breakfast. Pay close attention." The alien students tilted their heads. Some blinked with disbelief. Breakfast? What importance could that have? Yet the teacher's tone suggested it was something more. The human girl placed her bag on the desk and began to open it slowly. Every eye followed her movement. Her hands were calm, steady, as if she was not bothered at all by the dozens of alien stares. She reached inside and brought out a small box. The material looked ordinary to her, but to the aliens it was strange, foreign, and even dangerous in appearance. Whispers filled the air again. "What is that container? Why does it look sealed? Is it holding toxins?" The teacher allowed the whispers to continue for a moment, then gestured for silence again. "Patience. Watch." The girl placed the box on her desk and opened it with a quiet click. The lid lifted, and a wave of smell filled the room. To human senses, it was normal, even pleasant, the scent of eggs, bread, fruit, and something fried. To the aliens, however, it was overwhelming. They wrinkled their strange faces, their nostrils flaring in confusion. The colors inside the box were bright: yellows, browns, reds, greens. The aliens stared at it as if she had just opened a container of glowing fire. One alien whispered, that cannot be food. That looks poisonous." Another said, "Look at the red. Bright colors mean danger." The girl took a fork, lifted a piece of food, and placed it calmly in her mouth. The sound of her chewing echoed in the silence. To the aliens, it was unnerving. The crunch sounded sharp, almost violent, like bones breaking. Some students flinched. Others widened their eyes in disbelief. Still, the human ate with no concern. She chewed, swallowed, and then reached for a drink. It was a simple carton of juice, something she sipped casually, but the aliens gasped at the sight of the liquid. One alien raised a trembling hand. "Excuse me, you are drinking that? That's acidic, isn't it? On our world, that would corrode metal." The girl looked at him calmly and nodded. "It's just orange juice." Her words meant nothing to them, but the act itself sent ripples of shock through the classroom. The teacher stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. "And you consume this every morning?" "Yes," the girl replied. Her tone was simple, without pride or arrogance. She was stating a fact. The classroom erupted into whispers again. Some students leaned back in their chairs, putting distance between themselves and the human. Others leaned forward, fascinated, unable to look away. To them, this was not food, it was poison, toxins, dangerous chemicals. Yet here was a fragile creature consuming it as casually as breathing. One student, braver than the rest, raised his voice. "That should kill you. The fats, the oils, the fried textures, it would destroy your body." The girl tilted her head, slightly amused. "Not for us. It gives us energy." Energy. The word struck the aliens like a blow. Something that was poison to them was fuel to her. The teacher allowed the moment to stretch, watching the class wrestle with the idea. He wanted them to see, to understand. Humans were not what they appeared to be. The girl continued eating, unbothered by the stares. Every bite seemed to echo louder than the last, every sip of juice a reminder that she was defying the rules of biology as the aliens knew it. For them, survival was about caution, avoiding danger, fearing toxins. For humans, survival was about adaptation, consuming the very things that others feared. Minutes passed, but the tension did not fade. The classroom had become a stage, the human the performer, and every alien a captivated audience. They could not look away. Each bite she took was like a challenge to their understanding of life. Finally, the teacher spoke again. "Do you see now?" he asked the class. His voice was calm, but beneath it was something heavier, a truth that he wanted them to accept. This is why humans are feared. This is why their world is called a death world. What you see as poison, they see as nourishment. What would kill you, they consume every day. And they survive. The students sat in stunned silence. The human, still calm, placed the empty box back into her bag. She did not need to explain further. Her actions had spoken louder than words. And in that silence, as the aliens stared at her, they understood something they had only heard in rumors. Humans were dangerous not because they were strong, but because they could endure what others could not. The bell rang, signaling the end of the lesson, but no one moved. The image of the human calmly eating her breakfast burned itself into their minds, a memory that would not fade. They had witnessed something simple, yet terrifying. A human morning routine. The next day, the classroom felt heavier than before. The air carried tension, as though every student was waiting for something unusual to happen again. The aliens had spoken all night about what they had seen. Whispers had spread beyond the classroom walls. Other students in the academy wanted to know more about the strange human who ate poison as if it were nothing. When the human girl walked in, every eye followed her. Some looked at her with curiosity, some with fear, and a few with open disbelief. She moved with calm steps, as if she had not noticed the storm of attention. Her bag hung loosely at her side. She looked almost ordinary, yet the aliens could not forget the sound of her chewing, the way she had swallowed danger so easily. One alien leaned close to his friend and whispered, "She looks so small. How can something so fragile survive such deadly food?" Another hissed back, "Maybe she hides something. Maybe her body is full of strange defenses we cannot see." The teacher entered soon after, his tall figure moving with purpose. His scaled skin shimmered faintly under the lights as he faced the class. "Yesterday," he began, his voice calm but sharp, "you witnessed something simple. But it was not simple, was it?" His gaze moved across the rows of students. "It was shocking. Perhaps terrifying. And today, you will look closer." The girl sat at her desk, opening her box once again. The sound of the latch clicking open echoed through the silence. Inside, there was new food. Different shapes, different colors. Some pieces were soft and round, others long and thin, glistening with oils. The smell spread quickly, sharp and heavy. The aliens reacted at once. Some covered their faces with their hands. Others leaned away, their eyes narrowing as they tried to process what they were sensing. The smell was strong, rich, strange. To them, it was the scent of danger. The teacher nodded toward the human. "Eat," he instructed. Without hesitation, the girl lifted a piece with her fork. She bit down, chewing slowly. The sound once again made the aliens shudder. Crunch. Soft tearing. The rhythm of teeth breaking down food that, to them, looked more like poison than nourishment. A bold alien student raised his hand. His scales were dark, his voice deep. "What is that? Tell us." The girl looked at him and answered simply, "It's fried chicken." The words meant nothing to most of them, but the sight of her chewing it with such ease filled them with disbelief. The teacher explained, "This is meat. Flesh of another creature, cooked in oil, seasoned with spices. For her species, this is normal." Gasps filled the classroom. One alien nearly dropped his pen, his hand trembling. "Meat? That is unthinkable. You eat living things." The girl paused, fork in hand, and looked around at their horrified expressions. She nodded. "Yes. On Earth, many animals are food." The silence that followed was heavier than before. Some aliens recoiled in their seats. Others stared in frozen shock. To them, the idea was monstrous. On their world, eating another creature was taboo, an act only done by the wildest predators. And yet here was a human, speaking of it casually, as though it was no more serious than drinking water. Another student whispered harshly, "This proves it. Humans are predators." The teacher let the words hang in the air, then spoke slowly. And not just predators. Survivors. They eat plants, animals, whatever they can find. Their bodies are strong enough to accept many poisons. That is why they live where others cannot. The human girl continued eating, her expression calm. She did not seem to notice the horror in their eyes. To her, this was normal, routine. But to them, every bite was a challenge to their understanding of life. One alien dared to ask, voice trembling, Do you enjoy it? Does the act of consuming flesh bring you pleasure? The girl tilted her head. She thought for a moment, then gave a small smile. Yes. It tastes good. The word struck the students harder than anything else. Enjoyment. She not only survived by eating such things, she liked it. The line between danger and comfort blurred in their minds. The teacher turned back to the class, his voice rising slightly. Do you begin to understand? This is why the galaxy whispers about humans. What you call impossible, they call ordinary. What you fear, they embrace. This is not only about food. It is about their nature. The room was silent, except for the sound of the girl finishing her meal. She wiped her hands, took a sip of her drink, and set everything aside. Calm. Ordinary. But to the aliens, nothing felt ordinary anymore. They could not unsee what they had just witnessed. The classroom felt colder than before. The aliens sat stiff in their seats, their eyes fixed on the human girl as if she carried a dangerous secret. The memory of her eating meat still lingered in their minds. They could not understand how such a small, fragile-looking creature could consume something so terrifying and still sit there so calm, so alive. One alien finally broke the silence. His voice cracked as he spoke. What happens when it fights? If humans can eat things that kill us, what happens when they decide to use that strength against us? The whisper spread quickly through the room. Students leaned toward each other, their voices trembling as they spoke in hushed tones. Some glanced nervously at the girl, as if expecting her to leap across the desk at any moment. The teacher raised his hand, silencing them. His eyes moved toward the human. Continue, he said. The girl reached into her bag again. This time she pulled out a small packet. She tore it open with her teeth, and the sound was sharp in the quiet room. Inside were thin sticks, long and golden. She took one and placed it between her lips, biting down with a soft crunch. The aliens flinched. The sound reminded them of breaking bones. Some covered their ears, unable to bear the noise. One alien student whispered, "Is she eating bones?" Another whispered back, "No, it looks soft, but it sounds like something dying." The girl looked up, noticing their stares. She raised one of the golden sticks and explained, "These are fries. Just potatoes. Fried in oil." The words did not calm them. The idea of dipping a plant into boiling oil and then eating it seemed cruel, destructive, reckless. To them, fire was dangerous, oil was poison, and yet this human treated it like a snack. She popped another fry into her mouth, chewing calmly. Then she dipped one into a red sauce and ate it. The aliens leaned forward, their eyes widening. "What is that red?" one asked nervously. "It looks like blood." The girl shook her head. "It's ketchup. A sauce made from tomatoes. Sweet, a little sour." To the aliens, the explanation did not help. The red liquid dripped as she lifted the fry, and their stomachs twisted. It looked too much like something violent. The teacher's voice cut through their discomfort. "Understand what you are seeing. Fire, oil, toxins, acids, things you avoid, things you fear. To her, they are nothing. She consumes them daily. She survives them. She grows stronger because of them." One of the smaller alien students spoke, his voice almost a whisper. "She is not like us." The teacher nodded slowly. "Exactly. She is human. And humans are unlike any species you have met." The girl kept eating her fries, one after another, as if she were unaware of the storm of fear and confusion growing around her. But she knew. She could feel their eyes, could sense their unease. She chewed calmly, letting the sound echo in the silence. Every crunch reminded the aliens that she was different. For them, food was simple, safe, designed not to harm. For her, food was challenge, danger turned into strength. By the time she finished the packet, the class sat frozen. They understood that they had not just witnessed a meal. They had witnessed proof of something greater, something terrifying. And none of them could stop thinking, if this was just breakfast, what else were humans capable of? The silence in the classroom stretched long after the human girl finished her food. The aliens sat frozen, their hands pressed against their desks, their eyes wide with disbelief. None of them had expected such a lesson. They had thought breakfast would be simple, maybe boring. But every bite she had taken had turned their world upside down. Finally, one student raised his trembling hand. His voice shook as he asked, "Do you never get sick from this? From eating such things?" The girl looked at him calmly. "Sometimes humans do get sick. But most of the time, we don't. Our bodies can fight back." Her words sent another wave of whispers through the class. Fight back. To them, that phrase carried weight. Their own bodies were fragile against poisons, infections, and strange foods. Yet here was a creature whose body fought, struggled, and survived against things that should have killed it. The teacher stepped closer, his gaze fixed on the human. "Explain," he said softly. "How do humans fight back?" The girl tilted her head, thinking of the simplest answer. "Our bodies adapt. When something dangerous enters, our body learns to fight it. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it hurts. But after that, we become stronger." A ripple of shock passed through the class. One alien muttered, "Her body learns? Like a predator learning how to hunt." Another whispered, "That is not possible. No body should change like that." But the teacher raised his hand again. "It is possible. It is what makes them different. They suffer, but they survive. And survival makes them dangerous." The girl said nothing more. She simply folded her hands on the desk, her expression calm. She had spoken the truth in the simplest way, and it was enough. The aliens exchanged uneasy glances. They had always believed themselves advanced, safe, and wise. Yet in front of them sat a creature that looked fragile but carried a strength none of them could truly understand. One student leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "You eat poison. You drink acid. You fight sickness. You adapt. Then tell us, what do humans fear?" The question hung in the air like a heavy weight. The other students turned their heads, waiting for her answer. Even the teacher seemed curious. The girl smiled faintly. Her eyes held a calmness that unsettled them even more. "We fear many things. But fear doesn't stop us. We keep moving. We keep fighting. That's what makes us human." The words sank deep into the aliens' minds. Fear was something that ruled them. It was fear that kept them safe, fear that told them what to eat, where to go, how to live. But this human had just said fear was not a wall, but a door they pushed through. The room fell silent again. The students shifted uneasily in their seats, their gazes fixed on the girl who looked so ordinary, yet seemed more dangerous than anything they had ever studied. And for the first time, some of them began to wonder if the stories about humans, the stories of Deathworlders, were not just rumors, but truth. The silence weighed on every student like a heavy blanket. They wanted to look away from the human girl, but they couldn't. Something about her calm expression, her steady breathing, her relaxed posture, it was unnerving. She had just spoken about fear as if it were nothing, as if it were only another obstacle to push aside. To the aliens, fear was survival. To her, fear was only a test. One student finally broke the silence. His voice trembled, but his eyes burned with curiosity. "You say humans keep moving even when afraid. But why? Why not hide? Why not stay safe?" The girl thought for a moment, then answered simply, "Because if we hide, we die anyway. On Earth, danger is everywhere. If we don't fight, we don't survive." The words struck the class like a thunderclap. Some of them gasped softly, others shifted nervously in their chairs. On their own worlds, danger was rare. Their societies were built on stability, on safety. The idea of living where danger never ended was unthinkable. Another alien spoke, his voice sharp. "Your planet, it forces you to be like this." The girl nodded. "Yes. The weather can kill us. The animals can kill us. Even the smallest things, tiny creatures we can't see, can make us sick. But still, we live. Still, we grow. That is why Earth is called a death world. The room froze. The phrase hung heavy in the air, darker now that it had been spoken aloud. Death world. The aliens had heard the word whispered in rumors, in half-told tales. But hearing it directly from a human's mouth made it real. Whispers broke out at once. She admits it. A deathworlder, sitting right here in this room. No wonder she can eat poison. The teacher watched quietly, his eyes sharp but unreadable. He let the tension rise, let the students feel the full weight of what they were learning. The girl, unbothered, took out another small snack from her bag. This time it was something simple, an apple. She bit into it, the sharp crunch echoing through the room again. The aliens flinched, but not as violently as before. They had expected it this time, though the sound still carried a strange violence to their ears. One alien whispered, "Even fruit sounds like bones breaking when she eats it." Another muttered, "She destroys everything she touches. Even food must be broken before she swallows it." The girl finished chewing and swallowed before speaking again. "On my world, everything is a challenge. Even food fights back. That's why we learned to fight harder." The words cut through the whispers like a blade. Every alien stared at her in silence. She was not boasting, not trying to impress them. She was simply telling the truth. And that truth was more frightening than any threat could have been. The teacher finally spoke, his voice steady but firm. "Do you see now? This is not just about breakfast. This is not about food. This is about survival. And humans survive." The students sat frozen, their minds spinning. What they had seen was so ordinary to the human girl, yet so terrifying to them. And though none of them said it aloud, the same thought echoed in every alien mind. If humans could survive their own world, what chance would anyone else have against them? The classroom air grew heavier, almost suffocating. The aliens could no longer sit still. Their hands twitched, their eyes darted, their voices broke into scattered whispers that clashed with one another. The lesson had changed into something far more unsettling than any of them expected. One alien slammed his hand on the desk, his voice trembling with both fear and anger. "This is wrong. Nothing can live like that. Eating poisons, fighting sickness, surviving storms and predators, no fragile creature should endure that." Another snapped back, his tone sharp with panic. "But she does. You saw it with your own eyes. If she can eat toxins and live, then what else can she do? What else can her kind endure?" The debate grew louder. Some students leaned away from the human, as if distance could protect them. Others leaned forward, fascinated, as though staring at a mystery too great to ignore. The voices mixed, fear, disbelief, awe. She should not be alive. She is dangerous. Maybe all humans are like this. What if they cannot be killed? The girl remained calm. She watched them argue, her face unreadable. Her silence only made them more unsettled, as if she was studying them the same way they studied her. Finally, the teacher raised his hand, and silence returned like a sudden drop of weight. His voice was firm. "Control yourselves. What you fear is knowledge. Do not run from it." One of the younger aliens, his voice barely above a whisper, asked, "Teacher, are humans predators?" The teacher turned slowly, his eyes settling on the human girl. She did not flinch. She did not deny it. She simply looked back with calm eyes. The teacher then faced the class. "Predators, survivors, both words are true. They are prey and predator at the same time. Their strength is not in claws, not in fangs, not in armor. Their strength is in endurance. They will starve and still fight. They will bleed and still fight. They will fear and still fight." The words left the class frozen. None of them could argue. None of them could even breathe properly. The image of this small creature surviving against endless dangers was burned into their minds. Then, another alien, braver than the rest, leaned forward. His voice shook, but he forced the question out. "If this is what they eat every morning, if this is normal to them, then what happens when they are pushed to extremes? What happens when they are desperate?" The teacher's eyes darkened. Then, he said slowly, they become the most dangerous beings you will ever meet. The girl did not speak. She simply took another bite of her apple, the crunch echoing through the silent room like a warning bell. The students sat frozen in their seats, but their thoughts raced like storms. The sound of the human girl's apple crunch still echoed in their ears, sharp and unsettling. None of them wanted to speak first, yet the silence pressed too hard, demanding someone break it. Finally, a thin, nervous alien with pale skin raised his hand. His voice was soft but heavy with dread. "Human, how often do you do this? How often do you eat things like this?" The girl looked at him without hesitation. "Every morning." The words dropped like stones into the silence. Every head turned, eyes widening, jaws tightening. A simple statement, but the weight of it crushed them. Every morning. Not once. Not sometimes. Every single day. One alien whispered, horrified, "She consumes poison daily." Another muttered, "Her kind, they live in suffering, and call it routine." The teacher let them murmur for a moment before speaking, his voice deep and steady. "Do you understand now? This is not unusual for her. This is ordinary. Her people do this without thinking, without fear. And if this is their ordinary, imagine their extraordinary." The words struck hard. Some aliens leaned back, their bodies trembling. Others stared at the girl as if she were a predator disguised as prey. The girl finally set the apple down. Her calm voice cut through the tension. "We don't think about it the way you do. To us, this is just life. Dangerous, yes. But normal. On Earth, we don't wait for safety. We create it, even if it hurts." Her words silenced the whispers. The students were not sure if they felt respect or fear. Perhaps both. One alien student, bolder than the rest, clenched his fists and leaned forward. "And if something tries to take your safety away? If something stronger than you comes?" The girl's eyes met his. They were steady, unwavering. "Then we fight until we can't. And sometimes, even after that." The alien swallowed hard, his courage fading. Her tone was not angry, not loud. But it carried a weight that chilled him to the core. The teacher's gaze swept across the classroom. "You see now why the galaxy calls them Deathwelders. They are not the strongest, nor the fastest. But they refuse to stop. That is what makes them terrifying." The classroom was silent again, but this silence was different from before. It was not filled with curiosity, it was filled with realization. And in that silence, every alien student began to wonder the same chilling thought: if this fragile creature could survive the impossible on her own world, then what could her kind do if they ever decided to stand together? The classroom felt as if the walls themselves were closing in. No one spoke. The alien students sat rigid, their thoughts louder than their voices, their eyes fixed on the human who seemed so calm, so ordinary, yet so impossibly dangerous. The girl picked up the last piece of her apple, took a small bite, and chewed slowly. Each crunch echoed through the silence like a drumbeat. When she swallowed, the sound felt final, like the end of something none of them fully understood. She wiped her hands on a small cloth and placed everything neatly back into her bag. The teacher stood at the front of the room, his eyes scanning every face. "What you have seen today," he said, his tone low but powerful, "is not just a meal. It is a truth. Humans are fragile in appearance, yes. But inside them lives something your kind cannot measure. They suffer, they adapt, they endure. And in the end, they survive." The words rang heavy. No one dared to move. The alien students could feel it in their bones. This was not a story, not a rumor, not a myth. It was real. And it was sitting just a few feet away from them. The girl finally spoke, her voice soft but carrying across the room. "You don't need to fear me. I'm just one person. But you should understand this: every human you meet has lived with danger. Every one of us knows how to survive it. That is what it means to be human." Her words sank deep into the room like seeds planted in shaken soil. Some students shifted uncomfortably, others lowered their heads, and a few kept staring at her as though trying to solve a puzzle they never could. The teacher nodded once. Class dismissed. The students rose slowly, almost unwillingly, as though leaving meant carrying the weight of what they had learned out into the world. Their eyes lingered on the human as they filed out, whispers trembling on their lips. She eats poison. She fights sickness. She fears but keeps going. A death welder. The human girl remained seated for a moment longer. When the last alien had left the room, she allowed herself the faintest of smiles. It was not cruel, not mocking, just quiet, as if she knew a secret they were only beginning to understand. And in the silence of the empty classroom, the truth lingered like a shadow. What was ordinary for a human was extraordinary, and terrifying, for everyone else.